Welcome back to the Balance Bully podcast for ambitious women in business and a few brave men. I'm your host, Nikita Wren Thigpen, always thrilled to be in the space with you today. Listen, we are already full into this year, full into the joy and the stress of everything that every week has brought to us. And if you happen to be a mama or a mama to be, this one is especially for you. I am bringing the infamous Becky Vieira. She is the voice behind the popular Instagram mom account, Witty Otter. Yes, I really love the title already. Witty Otter, where she is leading the shift in the way women speak about motherhood to get away from the martyrdom of all the things that conventional wisdom says you're supposed to do and what you're supposed to be and how much you're supposed to sacrifice yourself. Before becoming a writer, Becky spent more than 15 years as a publicist for some of the biggest public relations agencies representing major consumer brands, including Mattel's Barbie, Disney Consumer Products, and the charitable program Stand Up to Cancer. Her newly released book, Enough About the Baby, was written as a gifting guide to new moms who want to be great caregivers and get their needs met too. Becky, welcome to the BBP. How are you today?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much for having me. I love your introduction of the book you made. I need you to just be with me all the time when people ask me the title.
I will do it. I love the title. When I read it, it literally was shouting at me, enough about the baby. I was like, I know, right? That's what I've been saying for 26 years. But
yeah.
I would love for you to share with everyone what brought you to this space in your career, just like high level as a writer who's now having all this phenomenal success on IG and speaking wisdom into these mothers who have been sucked into the bubble of expectations from society.
Yeah, there's a lot of that. So to back it up, as you mentioned, I worked in PR for quite some time, and I was just very much burnt out on it. I just wasn't enjoying it the way that I had been, and thought maybe it was time for a bit of a career pivot, as I call it. And when I got pregnant with my son, so I had taken some time off from work. My husband very generously said, why don't you just take a few months and figure out what you want to do? During those few months was when we discovered I was pregnant. And while I was on Baby Center, saw that they were looking for a new pregnant mom blogger. And I sent in some work, and lo and behold, they hired me, and I began writing in the mom space. So a lot of mom blogs, primarily Baby Center, Scary Mommy. And that led me to Instagram. And just from there, I've just really kind of started sharing, instead of, yes, some humor, but a lot of the truths about motherhood that I think that we don't speak often enough about.
True.
And just from there, that kind of became the book. It's all these things I wish I had known that would have made my experience better, and the information I think women need.
Yeah.
This new generation of moms who, aren't here for, being a martyr and being exhausted and being depleted, who want to enjoy this, to get through this, and are willing to do what it takes, which is prioritize themselves a little bit.
I know that's right. You're talking to the right one. I literally teach couples and individual women entrepreneurs how to be intentionally selfish in a good way, in a healthy way.
Yes.
It's so important. So I'm with you on all the levels. I think
that word gets such a bad rap.
It
like
does.
You can be selfish, and it's not like you're not caring about others, or you're taking away from others. Sometimes we have to be selfish. We have to take things for ourselves, because otherwise no one's going to give it to us.
Come on.
And we do deserve the time and the breaks and the consideration.
Of
course, the baby matters. The baby's always going to be top.
Of course.
But we need to be right under there.
Right. You'll appreciate this very visual metaphor that I usually talk about in corporate spaces too, which is always fun to see the look on everyone's faces. When I'm like, sometimes you got to stop breastfeeding everybody. And if you're constantly breastfeeding, even a physical, real child, we're talking hours and hours and hours. You and I know as mothers, that is pain, that is chafing, that is cracking, that is bleeding, that is resenting doing what you have wanted to do to nourish this human. And the same goes for the other people who are energetically being breastfed off of your energy, your siblings, your parents, if you're at a space where you're caregiving for aging parents, your friends who think you're supposed to still be available whenever they want to catch up and go together, as if you don't have a tiny human keeping you up all night, right?
Yes. Oh, keeping you up for days sometimes.
For days. I was trying to be generous, but speak the truth. What's some of the things that you feel, based on all the writing you've been doing in the mommy space, that are those, this doesn't have to be this way, types of advice that mothers, or new mothers especially, are typically getting, that would make them feel like they have to stop being an individual soul because now they're only a mother? Like, what are some of those things that come up?
Well, something you already mentioned, I think breastfeeding is, it's we've kind of come full spectrum with it, right? Like, there was this great movement to encourage breastfeeding, which I believe is very important. We do need the education. We do need the resources. We do want to empower women to breastfeed if they want to, but it's almost gone to the point now where it's, you will breastfeed. In my prenatal care, it was always talked about like it was a given. It was never asked of me if I wanted to breastfeed. It was never, anything I chose or suggested. It was just, you will breastfeed. If I asked about formula, it was, oh, don't worry about that. You will breastfeed. And, I knew nothing of formula, what to look for, what to pick, and I will breastfeed. I turned out very lucky that I had a great supply. My son was a great latcher, and we fed and we fed and we fed. And there were times he was wanting to go every 45 minutes, he was wanting to eat. And that's, as you said, it's very depleting. It's, you're stuck on a couch, especially in the early days. I would practically have to get undressed to the waist. I would need 2 pillows. I would need to put my feet up. It's not an easy process at the beginning. So I was doing that. Of course, it was taking a lot out of me. And I just got to the point where it began to affect my mental health. And when I kind of broached the topic of stopping or combo feeding, I was treated like I was just suggesting some horror. How could you do that to your child? And he needs your breast milk. And I went along with it, and really to the detriment of my mental health. I think that I wish that I knew that my sanity, my happiness, my mental health mattered more than whether my son was breastfed or formula fed. I think a great common ground for a lot of people is combo feeding, breastfeeding, pumping, but also substituting formula for some feeding. So it's not always on the mother. And, those were never told to me as an option. It was just this, you breastfeed or else. And that there was some level of shame associated with not doing it.
Listen,
and it's awful.
You hit the nail right on the head when you said that word. Shaking the shame is literally the reason that I even started the Balance Boldly podcast, because I feel like we, as pioneers in the individual spaces that we're in, we typically get it the most from other people in the space, or other experts that are like, if you don't do it my way, then right, like, you are not of excellence. You are not going to be your greatest version of yourself. Like, the last time I checked.
And that's ego, right?
So much ego.
To see you do it the same way they did.
Which is so ridiculous in so many ways, because when you get into, staying with breastfeeding just for a hot second, there are mothers, and I come from pediatric medical clinical care and trauma specialist as my background before this. When you have mothers who have physical medical issues that might interrupt their supply or be a danger to them because of the medication that they have to take for various illnesses where they cannot continue to feed, they are still shamed even though they'll say, oh, well, it's okay. Your situation is understandable. But the whole time, for all their prenatal appointments, for all the mommy circles that they've been a part of, all the things have made them feel bad, but they get to have an excuse if the pity is applicable, right? Like if it works in that arena. And then that makes those people feel less than empowered as mothers.
Yes.
And don't get me started on working mothers who, can't stay home for 6, 8, 10, 12 weeks or more, and they have to go. And there's still a ton of places that do not accommodate breastfeeding mothers with integrity, right? Like, yes, you might have a room where you're next to a loud, gross heater or something like in the organization, but that's not very nurturing to me, wanting to be in a good, healthy mental space as I'm thinking about nourishing my child and trying to scarf down my salad at the same time because it didn't give me extra time to do this either.
It's on you. It's on you. And some women are pumping in bathroom stalls, and it's just, it's terrible. It's terrible. No one is looking out for the mother.
Exactly.
And that's why we have to advocate for ourselves, because no one else will. We need to kind of launch this motherhood revolution. And there's a lot of things we need. There's a lot of things we need to start talking about. Yeah. Things need to change
on so many levels.
It is on us to do it.
It is, well, you're doing it, right? Like, I know I'm in it with all things intentionally selfish and living fully by balance and boldly, like all the things. And you dropping this very serious, very thick, I got my copy, very thick book down to really give them a space to be heard, I think is ultimately what you're doing. When you decided to curate all of the knowledge that you have been writing, through the micro blogs and the longer blogs and the different ways you were showing up, did you hit any imposter syndrome or anything that made you say, wait a minute, are people really going to listen to me? Are they going to hear me? Are they going to think I'm an extremist, actually wanting for the mother to be cared for? Did any of that come up for you in the back of your mind?
Yeah. And I think it always does. I mean, by nature of what I do, of sharing myself, so openly on social media. I do get a lot of that, who are you? This isn't how I feel. I mean, there's this perception, like we talked about, if you're not doing things the way I do them, you're wrong. Right. Or if you have a struggle that I didn't have, it's due to a fault in you. Right. And you hear that a lot. And, there's one small moms group somewhere in the UK, and they love to come after me on my Twitter and tell me that I'm trying to stifle the world's population by scaring women into not becoming moms. And you do hear these things, and they do kind of pop up in the back of your head at times. That's just who I am and how I am. I'd be lying if I said it never bothers me. I mean, of course, there's a lot where, you can just kind of roll your eyes and no, but I would say it's like you can take it 99 times and sometimes it's the 100th that just is the gut punch. So there were times I was kind of going through this and thinking, is this just me in a vacuum, in a bubble? But a lot of it I knew wasn't just me, because I had already done a lot of the work in speaking with mothers. So I went in with these kind of fully crafted ideas of what the chapter should be about, already based on things I'd spoken with women about. And as I started to bring in the experts and interview them, I think that really cleared up any kind of doubts or worries I had, because they do speak to all of these things and they do validate all of these thoughts that we're having. And they give us, ideas on how not to feel these horrible things, or how not to feel like you're alone, or, that you're the only one in these hard places. So, that helped. Although I will say, some days I look at Amazon and I see my name on there and I think, oh, that's when I feel the imposter syndrome. Like, who am I to have a book?
I don't know. A woman with 15 plus years of professional experience who also happens to be a wife and a mama, who also happens to have like 130,000 followers on one of her platforms. Just a little bit of credibility there. Just a smidge.
Thank you.
So I have to ask you, with all that you are navigating through and managing professionally and personally, how are you giving yourself permission to pause?
Yeah, it's not easy. I think anyone who thinks that they have it all figured out, bless their hearts, maybe they do. But for me, whenever I feel like I have it all figured out, that's when the other shoe drops. Right. Something comes up and, there we go. I think for me is I try to stop myself. I'm not great. I'm getting better at trying to carve out time for myself on a regular basis, but there is that guilt, there is that, I have one child, we had secondary infertility. I wasn't able to have another child. So I feel like I need to grasp every moment I can with my son. Yeah. So there is like a lot of times I do have that guilt about wanting to step away and wanting to take time for myself. But, I just remind myself that I have to do it. And again, it's practice what I preach in the book. If you don't do it, everyone else is going to suffer. Yeah. In many households, the mom is at the core. And if she's not functioning, she's the engine. If she needs work, the car's going to stop running. Mm-hmm. And, that kind of encourages me to, take time for myself. And I think also once I kind of started reminding myself that it didn't have to be these big, huge things, right? Like, I think when it comes for asking for help, we assume that, we need someone to come in and just swoop in and fix everything, when really just even having one or two little things makes a huge difference. So while I spent a lot of time, well, when can I find a weekend to go over it with my friends? Or when am I going to do this? It's not always easy, and it's not always going to happen. It does, and it can, and I have done those things. But sometimes it needs to be me saying to my husband, I'm going to Target, and I'm probably going to be there for 2 hours, and please don't call me, and you'll see me when you see me. Mm-hmm. And it's often just the alone time.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I love that. I do self-lovecations, 6 weeks out of the year, plus another 3 at the end. And it's a big part of what I teach a lot of the other entrepreneurial women, because we do deal with guilt and like, how dare you stop the breastfeeding, right? Like of all the people energetically and all the things. But when you come out of it, your sex is better. Your energy is better. You're more nourished. Your skin is better. Like there's so many different things that come, whether you're doing it in 20-minute pockets, like you said, or 2 hours for the Target, or the infamous sit in the driveway, moments.
Yeah. My car is a great source of a place where I recharge. Yes. And
literally,
and I think it's also important to know that at different stages, you're going to be able to get different things. Yeah. So while I would love to go, take a trip for a week with my friends, or for my husband and I to just take off and leave, it's not possible right now. And that doesn't mean it's not going to be in 5 years, but right. I think that we have to also kind of keep redefining what these things mean as mothers, as women, where you are in your career, where you are as your child a newborn, is your, it changes, and nothing has to be all or nothing. And what is here today isn't necessarily going to be the situation tomorrow.
Absolutely. I hear you speaking to the seasons. There's seasons for some of those things, but in the interim, carving out that space for yourself. Like I love blowing bubbles and having private dance parties for 2 minutes. Like just, the bubbles is breath work, and the dancing is energetic moving and silliness and awkwardness, but it raises my vibration and it allows me to show up fully for whatever that next maybe 2, 3, 4 hour stint is. So I'm with you completely.
And I get it from singing like the Hamilton soundtrack at the top of my lungs. And, when I'm in the car, I'm ready for Broadway. But
come on.
Outside of the car, it's more of a personal thing, but just that kind of release, is great for me. And, it's different for all of us, but to your point, it's just finding something, even if it's, taking a walk to a coffee shop and, getting coffee or a muffin or something, just taking something for yourself. And you have to take it.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's not, no one's going to do this for us.
Absolutely. Or else you'll just keep hearing about the baby. No.
Well, and it works better for society. Society's in a great place right now. They call us superheroes and, they say, oh, you have a village, and they say all these things, and it's like, but they do not, oh, well, you're a superhero, so we don't need to help. Well, we're not, and you do.
Right. Superheroes take commercial breaks. That's what I'll say to that. There's a commercial break for them. That we don't actually get in real life. How can people connect with you and get more of all your juiciness?
The best place to find me really right now is on Instagram.
Yeah.
And that's Witty Otter. I pretty much link everything, all my articles, my book, everything I do. I always say, I tweet sometimes. I'm too old for TikTok. But Instagram's my sweet spot. So that's usually the best place to find me.
No, I love that so much. I appreciate you, Becky, and your realness, your honesty, your transparency, and your ability to speak from your heart while doing it in a way where other people have a space with you at the same time. Thank you for showing up for us.
Oh, thank you. I just, in the short time we've been talking, I just feel this love for you. You just very wonderful presence. I'm so glad we spoke.
Thank you. You're making me smile and mess up my makeup. Cut it out. No.
That's what we should do as women, right?
Absolutely. 1,000%.
Yeah.
You're phenomenal and a gift. And I'm really grateful that you're here.
Oh, thank you so much. You're going to make me cry.
Mess up the makeup. No, don't do it. She's on a press tour, guys. She can't mess up the makeup. Everyone,
keep that mascara on.
I know that's right. Everyone, thank you so much for tuning in today. We value you. I have to ask you to think of the new incumbent mother or the mother that you already know that's being swooped into all the ecosystem of society talk of what has to be done when you know that it is not serving her so she can live her best life in the way that she needs to, and share this episode with her. If it's multiple people, triplicate my favor, but please share it with at least one other person. And outside of that, I want you to enjoy the balance of your day, but remember, do it boldly.